still really large.
Let's be clear about that. Yes, that's money well spent. If it's a bad deal, we won't accept it.
What do you think is going to be best for the community pharmacy sector? Another 1-year deal or a multi-year deal?
I think the likelihood is it's going to be a 1-year deal. And if it's a 1-year deal that isn't very good, I guess 1 year's better than 3-year. Ideally, we wouldn't be going from 1 year to the next on funding deals. But in this scenario, probably having 1 year, maybe with some guarantees of baseline, but the opportunity to bid for more in the future, that might be better.
There was a planned start for negotiations in September, but that's now passed, and you hope that it will start in November. Is that a confirmed start in November, or are you worried it's going to keep kind of being pushed down and the contract's going to come out at the end of the financial year?
My colleagues who've been involved in negotiations for many, many years say it's it's extraordinary if you manage to do them before the financial year that you're actually negotiating for. Seriously though, I think September was always optimistic with the SR and the 10-year plan working through and them knowing what the budgets will be for NHS and then how to share them out across the NHS. My expectation is we will have started negotiations before Christmas, and that would be the best thing.
I know Kinnock has said the 19% uplift wouldn't happen again. He said that contract last year, the one that just came in, was the first step towards sustainability. Surely anything less than a 90% uplift would be a failure if it's can't build on that first step towards sustainability, because there's a big funding gap between what was in the contract and the economic review. Will the next contract still continue that step towards sustainability or not?
Well, I don't know, and that's the biggest challenge, I think. I think Minister Kinnock, when he said it's a first step towards sustainability, he understood and he knows the big funding gap that's available. He did sort of also make it clear it does depend on what money is available through the spending review, and that's beyond his pay grade, right? That's Chancellor's decision. They've got a lot of pressures that they need to deliver. Of course, we know that even though that was an amazing deal we got this time, it's all been, most of that increase in the SAF has been eaten up by the increase in employers' national insurance, in the national minimum wage, and in general inflation. So we know that really that's gone nowhere. People are still very fragile, and there is a massive risk. And there's a massive risk for uncontrolled closures and collapse. We've made all the economic arguments for why we need the investment. They know what the funding gap is, but politically, I know they've got lots of priorities they're trying to satisfy, so we'll have to see. But clearly, if it's a bad deal, we won't accept it, and then we're in the grounds of this is imposition, and what does the future look like?
Also, you've been using a consultancy firm to help with the negotiations. I know his cost rose to over 500k for the last financial year. Do you think that's money well spent, considering the funding gap's still really large?
Let's be clear about that, because that's not 500k spent on negotiations. The consulting, we've got a consulting budget because we had an uplift in our levy, and we've spent it in different ways. The bit that you're talking about, actually the major part of that expenditure has been on them doing an economic evaluation of the return on investment that community pharmacy already delivers, and then making the economic case for investment in new services, which is we used to input to the Darcy review, to the budget submission, to the spending review, and which the department, we updated it when the independent economic review came out, and which the department were using as a reference document for making their submissions for the budget to get the current settlement. So yes, that's money well spent. A small part of consultancy of that budget was used also to give the committee negotiations training. Great stuff, got to always refresh our skills, and also to act as a critical friend to try to help us think about how to change the process of negotiations. That was very light touch, but it was helpful because it helped us think about the process and the order of which we talk about different elements of the deal that's on the table, and that was very valuable.
You've worked with both the Conservative government and the Labour government. Who has been the best political party advocating for community pharmacy that you've worked with, the Conservatives or the Labour?
Well, when I came in, I met three Conservative ministers. They disappeared in quite quick succession. Nothing to do with me, to do with the government being in a bit of chaos. None of them ever wanted to meet us again. And I tell you why, because they weren't listening and they weren't going to change the 5-year deal. So they weren't going to give us any more money, and they weren't listening to the risk and the challenge in the network. So that didn't feel like a very successful and positive relationship. What we've been able to do with Labour before they came into power, before they won the election, was to build up the case of these are the clinical solutions that community pharmacy can offer. This is the potential in this network, and that's why it must be sustainable and on a stable footing. And being able to make that case, and the fact that they were open to listening to that, that's been a far more beneficial relationship. That's got to be a better place to be than meeting ministers who aren't going to meet you again because their ears are closed and they're not going to help you.